Good morning, everyone. Oh, how's everyone doing this morning? That's good, that's good. Just as I kick off, thanks to the Obsidian team, Michi, for being a partner throughout so many years, always supporting Red Hat, and thanks for inviting us to this event. Today we hope to enlighten you guys a bit or give you a bit of food for thought around automation. I think in this world, Michi coined it this morning, there's a lot of AI discussions going on, but there's still quite a bit of room for us to take some tools, help us get through some of the obstacles we face day to day and make it easier for yourself as individuals. So once again, thanks Michi for this opportunity. All right, let's kick it off. I'm sort of similar. I like to walk around and do hand gestures, so if I do go out, Mike, just point me back. All right, okay, cool. I think one of the good things about myself, Chris, is we've got the fortunate space to talk to a lot of our customers with our partners, and we typically get feedback. And this year we got sort of common feedback, and I hope you can relate to this. And the second slide that you'll see here is, no, I don't work for Lego, I work for Red Hat, but we are using Lego because it sort of symbolizes building blocks. So the first thing we sort of, when we sit down and we have conversations with you as our customers and partners, we definitely get a message to say, you know what, Johan, Chris, this year we really have to do more with less. And we feel like we're on that little hamster treadmill and we just keep on running and don't take a lot of time to actually step out and see what's happening around us, because we have to do more with less, obviously. The second thing is we've got limited budgets. So I'm going to ask a question. Does anyone not have limited budgets in the audience? Please stick up your hand, because we want to make sure we get your name and details on that. Oh, there's unlimited budget. Chris, did you get in? So we can talk to you afterwards. So limited budgets is obviously in there as well. The third thing is something that it's not only South Africa based. Sometimes us in South Africa think it's bad for us, but skill is getting a problem. As we go throughout the world, we're talking about simplification, but it actually gets more complex in the background as we go along in the things we need to do. So skill is a problem worldwide, and we can't get enough of that. All right. And then the last thing is we're too busy. And we understand that. So if we look at the first item, we basically said we have to do more with less. That means our teams are under pressure. If we then look at obviously the financial impact, budgets being cut, we can't hire as freely as we used to in the past. And then we get ourselves into a bit of a wheel spin again, where that treadmill is going, where we're saying, we're too busy, sorry, we can't do this. Where sometimes you need to take a step back and say, how can we actually spend a bit of effort, look at how we can automate and make our life easier. So we basically go through the process and said, let's automate. It's not interference from anything I've got on. So, all right, so let's automate with Ansible. Now, the big thing about automation is, if we talk to customers as well, there's always a fear that automation is about getting rid of people. And it's actually not getting rid of people, it's actually three things we need to do, and it's the 3 Ps. So it's basically process. Let's actually start it the other way around. People, process, platform. That's the 3 important things that we need to look at. Via people, the biggest stumbling block of automating end-to-end is actually silos we've created in our organizations. So we need to sit together as a team, and we actually, as people, need to sit around and say, we create a little automation work group, and we'll go through what the possibilities of those are. Obviously, processes. Every organization we talk to has got their processes already defined. So you know what you need to do, you know what you need to step through, and obviously you need to be compliant with that in the organization. So you've done a lot of this work. It's just sitting together and actually get that process defined. And then the last thing is you need to pick a platform to do this. And that's where we sort of say, well, if you start looking at platforms, look at Ansible for infrastructure, IT automation. All right. A little bit of a slide just to sort of, in case you didn't know what Red Hat Ansible does. it just gives you a quick idea throughout the environment what we actually do. So we've got the ability to automate end to end. I always joke and say if you really want to do it with a couple of webhooks, you can link it into Debonair's Pizza. If you sit there at night and you're working late and you can just hit a button and it actually runs automation for you to order your pizza for you the next morning. But seriously, let's look at the components Ansible will help you with. So obviously networking, quite important. If you run a lot of switches, different makes and types of switches in your organization, you can have a common layer of actually automating this through your ops, your configuration management, and your network visibility. Obviously, an infrastructure is where, when we talk to our customers, where we are actually getting used most is the infrastructure space, how to actually configure servers, how to manage them, how to spin them up, how to control drift. And then obviously the management of that service, how do I patch it, etc. I think one of the growing areas where we're seeing, and I don't think this is uncommon because when we do talk to you as well, and we ask you what your top 3 priorities as organizations, the first priority that always pops up is security. So integration into security is basically, threat hunting, incident response, which is quite critical when you do have incidents. How do you quickly reconfigure firewalls and networking equipment? Ansible will be able to do that. And then obviously, we saw it last year and this morning, everyone that we talk to these days in some other form has got a portion in the cloud. So how do we actually do orchestration? How do we operate in the cloud? And how do we keep our governance that we had on-premise obviously in the cloud? Then another automation point there is obviously applications. You can build pipelines how to deploy your applications. Chris has got quite an in-depth knowledge of that if you want to have a chat to him, right, Chris? How to go through that. Also important is obviously infrastructure as a code, and we'll go through a bit of that, and then we get to the edge use cases where Ansible is actually quite strong as well. So if you've got a lot of branch offices out there that's got technology there, think about it from end-to-end automation in that environment, and also the management of that. All right. Now, going back to my Lego theme, what are we trying to accomplish at the end of the day? We are trying to go through a workflow where we say across the organizational silos, if you sit today and you look at this slide and you go, all right, when I go and I want to try and provision a virtual machine, and this is the example here, what do I need to go through to actually get to the end? And how long does this take me to do? Because typically, when we talk to people, they said, you know what, that only takes me 10 minutes, and that will only take me 15 minutes. But if you start looking at combinedly, today we sit with customers that this process can take up to 3 weeks. If you automate it, it can take into hours or possibly minutes, less than an hour if you actually go through this. The first thing you do need to do is get through those processes that you've got in your environment, as I spoke to you about before, and you have to go to each of those individuals and actually automate the process. So that's basically taking the previous slide and say, this is nirvana, where you can get to with the Ansible technology. But today I actually want to take it to the next level, because when we talk to you once again as our customers, you've got some form of actual automation going on at certain levels. Some of you use Terraform, others use configuration, drift management. So you've implemented portions of that. And the bit that myself just want to relay is event-driven automation. That's taking it to the next level, all right? Event-driven automation is a bolt-on to Ansible. It sort of sits in the architecture. If you can have a look there, you've got the automation deployment, and then you get the automation administration. Once again, when you've gone through your processes, you can actually go and sit down and say, how much can I actually take an event and actually get an action from it? And that's what event-driven automation is. Now, instead of going down, here's the architecture of the product, and this is all the features, I'm going to more go the use case route today with you as the audience here. What can you use event-driven automation for? So once again, if we look at the previous slide, what Ansible can do, we obviously plug into those, but we basically say, look, at the network and the edge, you can do basic troubleshooting, you can remediate configurations, and this can all be automatically triggered, as well as obviously response and redeployment. Operating systems, we'll look at a specific use case around ITSM just now, but in operating systems we can basically work in the infrastructure, escalate open tickets, etc., ensure compliance across your environment, automate, obviously, the response and tickets. Virtualization, you can go and spin up machines if there's an action that takes place, or you can even scale, saying this is running out of resources, how can I scale more of that virtual machine or that application to do that. Very important is the employment of self-service, and we'll have a bit of a chat about that as well. Obviously, applications, cloud, and security. So there's a lot of things we can actually trigger with EDA in this space. All right. So when we do talk to you and we talk about automation, there's a trend that we always go along, and we want to try and automate the most complex process in our organization, which is not the place to start with automation. It's actually the more time-consuming items we have in our organizations is that smaller things we do, that 15 minutes that just takes me to add a user, that 20 minutes to change a password, that 40 minutes to troubleshoot that event. That's actually what's the time-consuming bit, and you actually want to free yourself from that and give your teams the time back to actually innovate a bit more in your organization. So we are sort of saying, if you start looking at event-driven Ansible or automation, is start with these use cases. That's not the only use cases that we recommend, but start with service ticket management. Automate the fact gathering. So if you actually look at it, I've got another slide that I'll show you the process of actually fault finding. Start the facts gathering. That can be automated. You don't need to go and find someone to go and look at all that logs. Automate your notifications and certificate management. I think these days, if you're in a security game, we all talk about certificates everywhere, and it's something that, trust me, if it expires, stuff stops because it's really important. So certificate management is quite important there. On the remediation side, obviously, when stuff do break, and they do, what do we do about it? How do we make sure that a virtual machine or a container doesn't get built with content in there that's not actually allowed by a compliance environment? So you can basically go through there and look at drift, slow performance, and obviously outages is in there as well. And then the one that actually do take a lot of time still, although people sort of say we've got that tape, is actually user management. It still takes a lot of time. If you look at one of our customers, it's a publicly referenced site, Mauritius Commercial Bank, you'll see the CIO basically reckons they got 2,000 people days back just by automating the basics in the environment. All right, so there is definitely work on that. So who hasn't seen a slide like this? We've had Atlassian talk about this before. This is the flow when stuff happens. I said to Michi, I won't swear today. So when stuff happens, this is what we need to go through. Something breaks, someone notices it breaks. Then you have to figure out why did it break. Then you have to go and find the right person to start working on it. Then you fix it. Then your system is back, and guess what? Something else breaks. So you go through the whole loop again. So the idea with EDA is to go through all of these acronyms, and you can see mean time to detect, mean time to investigate, mean time to action, mean time to repair, mean time to restore service. You can work through out of that, and step by step, as the Lego bits are there for building blocks, you can go and build out to automate every bit a bit more in the next iteration. Because what do we need to do? We need to test this. We need to make sure then we automate at scale that it actually works and will resolve our issues. So if we look at the ITSM scenario, the first thing you can do is say, when an event happens, I can automatically use the technology I've got to open a Jira ticket for me or a Jira service management ticket for me. From there, you can actually go along to the next step. You can go and say, okay, now I know there's an incident. EDA will actually take it and will actually run through the environment to say, let me gather all the facts that's gone wrong. Is it a web server that went down? Is it a server that's down? Can I connect via the network? Is it as a couple of days ago we saw a little outage that was caused by DNS, and us in IT always say it's always DNS at the end of the day, but was it caused by DNS, for argument's sake? take specific actions. So these are playbooks you actually build out with the Ansible technology and say, if this happens, then do that. And it'll actually take action and remediate. And you can actually set that up to the point where it'll actually come back and say, look, I cannot remediate, I need OI, which I appreciated this morning, to come and actually have a look at this. But Chris will go into the art of possible going forward with AI technology. And then the last thing that's really important in this scenario is getting that self-service going from your end user point of view. Someone to actually log in and say, I need to create a user, I need to modify a user, I need to give access to a specific user. It sounds very, as I said, it's one of those basic use cases that we don't pay a lot of attention to because we think, it's quick enough to do, but it does actually take a lot of cycles. So the self-service user example on the administration side is a quick self-service implementation. Now, as we say, there is more, and it's not only those use cases I mentioned in the beginning. There's a lot of other use cases you can build out, but our recommendation is always start your automation projects small, efficient, quick wins that take the mundane tasks away. I'll share a copy of this presentation with Michi and the team so they can distribute it to you, so I'm not going to read through all the wordage, but the key for me is when we have that conversations, because you've done most of this, it's easy for us to sort of sit down and say, here's your quick wins to work you through. And combinedly between Red Hat and Obsidian, we can work out where's your quick wins for you. So I do encourage you to reach out to us. All right. Unfortunately, I have to pay the bills now and again as well, so I'm just going to go into a bit of technology discussion here. So on the 8th of October, we've actually announced our latest release of Ansible, and that's Ansible 2.6. And it's got 3 key areas that we are focusing on. All right, it's automation dashboard, it's Ansible Lightspeed, and I'll explain a bit more what that means in a second to you guys if you haven't heard about it. And then what we refer to as the self-service automation portal. I'm just going to build these out. The automation dashboard is something we developed because we do realize we want to make this easier for you to implement automation. So we know that the techies, there was a bit of command line discussions this morning. I'm also from a command line area. If you really want to go down a command line, we've got something called a playbook, and a playbook is in YAML. You can go and write Lacquer code, and you can automate your environment, or you can actually step through the automation dashboard. Apologies about that. So you can customize the way you want to see it. You can have a look what's going on in AAP. There's also something for anyone in finance that's here this morning. Procurement? Okay, we've got people in procurement. Normally this is a good thing for management to see, I've spent something on an automation tool. And we typically do find that sometimes it's always that argument, it's a nice to have. We believe it's a must have. This dashboard will actually give you the amount you've saved by automation. So you can actually go back to your management team and you can go and say, this is what we've saved by automating and using EDA. So it'll give you that. It'll tell you the amount of jobs that's running in the environment. You can do reporting, and this is where it becomes important. Remember, if we start automating, what do we need to do? We basically need to go around and create audit trails. What happened when? What is that, the compliance in our environment? Did we follow procedure? Did everything happen as it should have? It's got full, obviously, audit trail built in. And also, who did what? Because the important part of this is actually building out role-based security. And with roles-based security, we saw that little slide where we've got all the different people. You can actually give everyone their own access to their own environment to actually spin up and create stuff. But that will go through the flow, who actually executed those playbooks. And the last bit here, it's, as I said, if you need to go to your management, you have to go and prove that ROI or that TCO, you can actually go and PDF this and mail this to your CFO. All right. Okay. The second thing that we've released in 2.6, where we made some changes. If you're familiar with Ansible Lightspeed, and yes, it's a part of AI. We obviously had the opportunity to work with watsonx to give you the opportunity to say, look, I want to create something to automate something. Let me go and ask sort of a chatbot, and the chatbot will actually help me to basically do that. Sorry, I'll keep on clicking to the to the next one. Let me just go back to there. It'll actually basically going to ask and actually prompt you what to do. What we are doing with a tech release now in 2.6 is we're giving you the ability to actually deploy local LLMs on-prem or VLLMs on top of RHEL or top of OpenShift to actually help you with this, so you don't have to actually go over the internet to do this. So it gives you that opportunity to go into Ansible and say, how do I create a playbook to add a user and set its permissions and make sure the guardrails are around there. So that's what Lightspeed will do for you. As I said, it's coming to a local execution environment. And then the last bit, which is very important to us, to make this work across scale, you have to have different views for different people. So the self-service automation portal is basically there for you to say, network admin, you can manage networks. Server admin, you manage servers. Virtual machine admin, you've got your virtual machine. Storage admin, you've got that. Security admin, you've got access to only your own playbooks and stuff. And you can actually take it to the level and actually push that down to, by integrating it with a ticketing system, you can then basically say user logs a call and it'll go and execute against that to create whatever is required from that user point of view. So this is also something significant we've obviously added into a graphical user interface from that point of view. So I thank you. I'm going to hand over to Chris. Chris is going to do just the last parting shot. Always say, be friendly to your favorite chatbot, because you never know what happens in the future. All right. Thank you very much. I'm handing over to Chris. All right.